So something Robertson, who's 56 years old, lived in Detroit. His girlfriend or someone in his family had died recently, and he got to keep the house that the two of them lived in. So he decided he'd settle down in Detroit. He was working at a factory at the time as an engineer. Okay. Get that?
Nope.
So it was really far away. So the man. So as the story goes, he had a car. It was a 1988 Ford, and it went off the road and was totaled. It couldn't be fixed. So he collected.
He earns about $10,000 a year.
In the Detroit area, and he couldn't afford the insurance because it was so high. So he looked around, compared insurance costs in different states.
Detroit was the highest.
Detroit was the highest, and after 1 year, it was going to be about $10,033 in insurance, and he couldn't afford it. So he started walking about 10 years ago. No. Did you get that? So he'd walk for about... He'd take... Yeah.
His pay was cut, so he had to keep walking?
And other towns around... Then he transferred to another bus, and that was fine, so I'm not getting that.
He could take one bus, transfer to another bus in the town of Troy?
But that town didn't have a bus, so he was stuck and he'd have to walk. So every day, Monday to Friday, he'd go to work.
Never missed a day.
And he'd work from 2 in the afternoon to 10 at night, Monday through Friday. So he'd start at the morning at about 8 o'clock, and he'd start walking. And then he'd get on a bus, and the bus would go along and arrive, and then he'd have to transfer and to another bus in Troy, and then he'd walk 7 more miles to work. He'd work all day, and then about lunchtime, his boss's wife always brought food for them. So after lunch was finished and work was done, at night he'd have to walk all the way back in the dark. And he'd walk to the Troy to get the last bus at 1 in the morning back to Detroit. And then from there, it was closed and he was stuck.
And arriving home at 4 in the morning. He did this every day. He'd walk about 21 miles. He would drink a lot of Coke. And then the boss... Nope.
Strict. So when other people would call and say they can't make it, he'd use him as an example to say, no, you can make it, come to work.
Eventually he noticed when he would walk to work, a lot of people would stare at him, wondering who he was walking to work every day. So there was a banker who worked in investments, would see this man walking every day. And one day pulled over and asked him, "What are you doing?" He explained his whole story. And if the banker had time, he would give him a ride. Eventually became every week, or when the weather was bad, he would offer him a ride, which meant he could arrive home at 11 instead of 1.
Take a bath.
Yeah. So the Detroit Free Press newspaper heard about it and did a story about it. About this man walking to work every day.
Who is he? A student at a university.
At the University of Detroit thought about what they could do and decided to set up a GoFundMe page with the goal of raising money to help him buy a car. Word spread and it raised a lot of money. And recently I noticed it had about $30,000 in it. $300,000. So now this man has become famous and he has done interviews for TV and radio.
And even gotten job offers closer to home.
And was able to get a he was able to buy a car, he was given a car. He's had people help him budget his money and invest it to pay for things like gas, insurance, maintenance, things like that, as well as doctor's appointments and other expenses. People asked if he had planned to quit his job, but he said no. He loves his job and wants to continue working in that same place. It's just now easier to drive to and from it. Isn't that a nice story?